Hi, my name is Kelsey Tice, and I will be talking about the conjunction, which is the focus of chapter 24 from the textbook, the grammar book. And this is for Ing 584 with Dr. Infante, and it's June 15th, 2022. Here is a preview of the organization for the presentation today. So overall, the topic is the conjunction. And it'll have two parts to it. The first part is an introduction to the concept, and that will include also talking about conjunction form, meaning, and use. And the second part of the presentation will focus on suggestions for teaching the conjunction. That will include to, either, neither speaking practice, as well as complex coordination writing practice, and finally, coordinating conjunctions listening practice. To start the conjunction, here is an introduction to this concept. This is a quote from the textbook. Conjunction or coordination is the process of combining two or more like constituents to produce another larger constituent of the same type. And so a conjunction is basically conjoining together two like constituents. The textbook focuses on simple coordination as well as complex coordination. Simple coordination is divided into three different kinds. First of all, coordinating conjunction is when like constituents are combined with a coordinating conjunction, such as the word and. Here's an example. We served wine and cheese that night. The word and is the coordinating conjunction. Ellipses is the second kind of simple coordination, and this is when redundancies are eliminated, such as omitting a verb phrase the second time in a sentence and adding the word to. Here's an example. We could see Orion and they could too. In the second part of the sentence, the verb phrase see Orion is eliminated to avoid redundancy, and the word to is added. The third kind of simple coordination is a proform. When substituting a proform for a redundant constituent, such as replacing a name with a pronoun the second time and adding the word to. Here's an example of a proform. Annie plays softball and she plays soccer too. The word Annie is replaced with the pronoun she to again avoid redundancy. And then we have the word to at the very end. Complex coordination consists of two-part correlative constructions. The textbook talks about how EL students often find this kind of coordination particularly challenging because, and this is a quote, one part precedes the first conjunct and the other correlates with and precedes the second. This is from page 481. Correlative conjunction pairs include both, and, either or, neither nor, not only, but also. And here is an example of a complex coordination. Cecilia is both energetic and ambitious. So it has the words both and in there, the correlative conjunction pair. This is a video from Schoolhouse Rock that I would like to show you that is called Conjunction Junction. And it's an older video, but it's one that I've always really remembered since I watched it when I was little, and it's something that is just really catchy and has stuck with me and has helped me to understand conjunctions a little bit better. Unfortunately, it won't let me play the video in here in the PowerPoint video, but I have included the link down below so you can go and watch it. It's only a few minute quick video, so you can go and watch that, or maybe you've already seen it before so you wouldn't have to go and watch it again. I included it in here because it's something that helps people to understand conjunctions better, especially like the use of the different trains and the idea of combining the different phrases and parts of a sentence together with conjunctions. I like the idea of thinking of it as like a train car, which I think is a good way to talk to students about it. And I also think that it's catchy and just is a good way of introducing conjunctions. All right, so now we're going to talk about conjunction in its form. So this slide we've already seen before, but now I'm going to start breaking it down. And so I have here in yellow the first part that we're going to be talking about more specifically in relation to form, the coordinating conjunction. This is when like constituents are combined with a coordinating conjunction, such as the word and. We served wine and cheese that night. Symbol coordination is combining like constituents with coordinating conjunctions, and then you'll see the word and up at the top. So the next few slides are focusing specifically on the word and. This is a quote from the textbook from page 482. Perhaps the easiest way to begin a discussion of simple conjunction is by mentioning the most common signal used to conjoin, the coordinating conjunction and, which seems to mean much more the same as the plus sign in arithmetic. So in the textbook, it often will show the plus sign in relation to the word and to show that that's what the and word mostly does. So these are some pictures taken right from the textbook that I thought were really helpful in describing this simple coordination with the word and. And so we have noun plus noun, like bread and butter, noun phrase plus noun phrase, the bread and the butter, adjective plus adjective, big and strong. And then we have an adjective phrase plus an adjective phrase, very big and extremely strong. Verb plus verb, run and hide. Prepositional phrase plus prepositional phrase, over the field and into the trees. And then also adverb plus adverb, rapidly and effectively. And then a sentence plus a sentence. She got in the pool and she began to swim. And then in the second picture, down here, we have the visual representation of this. So we have the noun phrase, and then that is broken down into the noun phrase plus conjunction plus the noun phrase. And then we have the adjective phrase with the adjective, conjunction, adjective, and the sentence with sentence, conjunction, sentence. There can be multiple conjunction with two or more elements. With adjectives, here's an example, a big, high, fearsome wave. So it's combining together several different adjectives. With prepositional phrases, they ran out of the house, across the yard, and into the street. And it can also be with other constituent types as well. The conjuncts should have commonality, but do not have to be the same part of speech. So you could have something like, he was sad and feeling sorry for himself. And this is an adjective and a participial phrase. The textbook also talks about other coordinating conjunctions as well. And the way that I learned these is with the acronym FANBOYS. I like this acronym just as a useful way to remember all of the different possibilities for coordinating conjunctions. However, it is important to keep in mind that some coordinating conjunctions are definitely used more than others, which we'll talk about in the upcoming slides. But with FANBOYS, we have the word for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. So these coordinated conjunctions conjoin like constituents. So here's some examples. We will have coffee or tea. He keeps trying, but not succeeding. They close the theater, for there was no other choice. He is friendly, yet vain. She arrived early at the market, so she got the freshest food. I don't smoke, nor do I drink. Besides and, or, and but are traditionally the other coordinating conjunctions. For, yet, so, and nor are sometimes included. For is considered to be somewhat archaic in speech. It is still used in formal writing, but in terms of speech, it is pretty archaic. Yet and so more often function as adverb subordinators, but are sometimes combined with a coordinator. And so that would look something like this: and yet, and so. The next kind of simple coordination is an ellipses, when redundancies are eliminated, such as omitting a verb phrase the second time in a sentence and adding the word to. Here's an example. We could see Orion, and they could too. So the verb phrase the second time is eliminated, and then the word to is added. The first kind of ellipses is an uninverted affirmative form. So you eliminate the redundancy and add the word to. Here's an example. Birds can fly, and I can too. So we have, we eliminated the part that says fly, and obviously the word birds, because we're not talking about birds the second time, and then added the word to. In inverted affirmative form, you eliminate the redundancy, add an adverb, like the word so, in the clause initial position, and this is thus triggering the subject operator inversion. So birds can fly, and so can I. So by putting the so in that position, it is then triggering that subject operator inversion. So instead of, in that first example, I can, it switches to can I. So it's inverting it. There are also uninverted and inverted negative forms. In the example below, sentence B elided, like eliminated, the redundancy in the repeated verb phrase. So if we look at B, it says, turkeys can't fly, and I can't either. So it took away the fly, and then it added that word, either. In sentence C, not and either are combined into the word neither. Its placement before the subject, so putting it here, triggers that subject operator inversion, and so it's can I instead of I can. There's also gapping. This type of ellipses that occurs is in the middle of the sentence rather than at the end of the second clause. So here's an example. John trimmed the tree and Mary the hedge. So we can see here that the word trimmed is in the middle of the second clause, and that was the part that was eliminated. So we have the gapping. The other kind of simple coordination is the proform. When substituting a proform for a redundant constituent, such as replacing a name with a pronoun the second time and adding to. Example, Annie plays softball and she plays soccer too. So changing the Annie to she and then adding that word to. So with proforms, you substitute, or you can substitute with proverbs. So here's an example of that. Glenn likes to play tennis and Elaine does too. So the does is replacing the likes to play tennis. And this is a good way to reduce that redundancy that could happen if you kept the likes to play tennis in there with the second clause. You can also substitute pronouns and substitute words. She believes the police, and I believe them too. So the them here is replacing the police in the first part of the sentence, and then the word to is added. She is a citizen, and he is one too. So this is a substitute word. So a citizen is being substituted with the word one, and then the word to is added at the end. You can also substitute with pro-adverbs. I graduated from St. Thomas, and she graduated from there too. So St. Thomas is replaced with the adverb there, and then the word to is added at the end. So these are all different kinds of pro forms. Now moving on to complex coordination. This consists of two-part correlative constructions. EL students often find this coordination challenging because one part precedes the first conjunct and the other correlates with and precedes the second. So it's just a little bit more complicated of a construction. Correlative conjunction pairs include both and, either or, neither nor, not only, but also. An example is Cecilia is both energetic and ambitious. So we're just going to break this down by the different kinds of complex coordination. The first one is both, ... and. Wide range of possibilities for constituent coordination exist. So correlative elements can appear just before the coordinated constituents. So here's some examples from the textbook. Both Mary and John arrived early. Mary is both energetic and ambitious. John wants both to stay at his job and to leave town permanently. So this is perhaps more often how we will see both and. However, both does not always occur directly before the first conjunct. And this we can see in the second examples down here in the second examples. So we have both John and Mary arrived early. John and Mary both arrived early. And so you can see in the second example that you can move the both to after John and Mary. Mary is both energetic and ambitious. But you could also say Mary is energetic and ambitious, both. However, I would say that to me that sounds a little bit more awkward, but this is from the textbook. For complex coordination, there's also the correlative conjunction either or and neither nor. These correlative conjunctions also generally place the conjunctive elements directly before the options mentioned. So here are some examples from page 489. Either Mary or John arrived early. Neither Mary nor John arrived early. Mary is either energetic or ambitious. Mary is neither energetic nor ambitious. So here we have the conjunctive elements directly before. However, the first correlative element can appear in a different place, like we also saw on the last slide. Mary wants to either stay at his job or leave town permanently. John wants neither to stay at his job nor leave town permanently. You could also say John either wants to stay at his job or to leave town permanently, or John neither wants to stay at his job nor to leave town permanently. So you can see that the correlative element can appear in a different place. So we're looking specifically here at either, neither, either, neither. So you can see that they're in different places of the sentence. The third part of this presentation is conjunction with its meaning and its use. The textbook put together meaning and use. It did not separate these two into different sections of the textbook, so that will also be how I am talking about them in this presentation. This is a quote from 489. Conjunctions allow speakers to combine two or more like elements. Their use helps make writing, especially, less choppy and less redundant. This is something that I've noticed in my teaching of language arts. I've taught language arts for altogether 12 years, and I notice in a lot of my students writing as they're learning how to write that a lot of their sentences tend to be really choppy as they're first starting to learn how to write. And then they end up kind of getting to more like run-on sentences. So they kind of switch from the choppiness to then the run-on sentences. And so it's this delicate balance of making sure that they're using conjunctions and using them correctly and not using them too many so that the sentence kind of runs on for a while. So this is definitely something that I've seen is a good thing to focus on with student writing, because conjunctions can really help to make sentences less choppy and redundant. Not only can writing be choppy and redundant without conjunctions, it can also lead to run-on sentences and comma splices. So I have three different examples here. So the first is a run-on sentence. The moon is full. That explains their crazy behavior. Okay, so in that sentence, we need to fix it so it's not a run-on sentence, so it needs a conjunction. In the second sentence, we have a comma splice, which is just another kind of run-on sentence that has that comma in there. The moon is full. That explains their crazy behavior. Again, still missing the conjunction. And then the third example in green, we have the conjunction. The moon is full. So that explains their crazy behavior. That sentence sounds a lot better, and the logic combining those two clauses together makes a lot more sense. Meaning and use. So this is taken from 490 in the textbook. I like this chart because it is, I think, a simple way of introducing conjunctions to beginner EL students. However, it is important to note that conjunctions can have many different meanings and functions, and so this is really just a starting point. So you would want to go further with this in your classes, but I do think it is a good place to start. So the conjunction and has the basic meaning of plus. An example, Lloyd and Mark are going into business together. But shows contrast. An example is Lloyd is hardworking, but Mark is lazy. And the conjunction yet can mean but at the same time. Mark is lazy, yet well-intentioned. The conjunction so has the general meaning of therefore. Neither man had much money, so they decided to collaborate. And then the word for has a general meaning of because. I hope they succeed, for this has been a dream come true for both men. Or one or the other of two or more alternatives is true. They are determined to make it or to go bankrupt in the process. And finally, nor conjoins two negative sentences, both of which are true. Lloyd doesn't give up easily, nor does Mark. So first of all, we're going to talk about the meaning and use of the word and. So it can be used in 4 different ways. As a logical operator, the truth of the statement depends on the truth of each conjunct. As long as each conjunct is true, then the entire conjoined sentence is true. So we have Stu is a cook and Fred is a server. And the basic way of looking at this is with this equation. X plus y should equal y plus x. Now, the textbook talks about how this is complicated because it doesn't always do this. X plus y is not always interchangeable with y plus x. The first example, it is. Tokyo is the capital of Japan and Paris is the capital of France. So that sentence could easily be switched around and it still has the same meaning. So you could say Paris is the capital of France and Tokyo is the capital of Japan. But if we look at the second sentence in red, it does not have that same logical equivalent. Fred fell down and he hurt his foot badly. So in that case, we wouldn't be able to just switch around that sentence and have it mean the same thing. He hurt his foot badly and Fred fell down. So this is showing us here that actually the word and is a lot more complicated than just being used as a logical operator. So another way that you can use or think of and is as a marker of many meanings. So this is a picture from the textbook that shows all of the different ways that we can use the word and. Annie is in the kitchen and she is making donuts, so that means and there. Annie fell into a deep sleep and her facial color returned, and that means and during this time. The window was open and there was a draft, and that means and coming from it. Peter married Annie and she had a baby, and after that. Paul pounded on the stone and he shattered it, and that means and thereby. Give me your pitcher and I'll give you mine, and that means if you give me your pitcher, I'll give you mine. The third way to think about the word and is as an inferential connective. Another idea is that these so-called meanings of and are actually not meanings at all, but aspects of use, where use means that the context of the utterance determines exactly how the word will be determined or will be interpreted. So the listener / reader is supposed to make an inferential connection. It is implied, but not stated. So here's an example. John fell down and hurt his knee. So in this instance, we assume he hurt his knee because he fell down. So this is an inferential connection that we are making, and it is not implied, or it is implied, but it is not stated. The fourth way to look at the word and is as a marker of speaker continuation. A speaker may use and to signify that they wish to continue talking after taking a breath. So it's used as a discourse marker. The use of sentence initial conjunctions is increasing, especially in conversation. So you might see or hear something like, and I went to the store. Since English has many uses of and, many EL students may not fully utilize the word. So this may be something that we need to work on with our students, is making sure that they see all of the different ways that we can use the word and so that they are fully utilizing that word. Now moving on to meaning and use of the words but and yet. But / yet and denials of expectations. So this is the first kind of way to think about the meanings and use of but and yet. The type of contrast, often called adversative. This is a quote from the textbook. What is expected after a reading of the first conjunct turns out not to be true from a reading of the second. So here is an example. He is assertive, and you can say but or yet, introverted. Okay, so we're adding that because we can't tell from the beginning that it's going to be true about the second part of the reading. You can also use but as a marker of semantic contrast. And this is when two entities or qualities are juxtaposed in order to focus on contrast in meaning. I love dancing, but my husband prefers biking, and that is actually a true example from my life. So in this example here, we're seeing that we're juxtaposing the first part of the sentence and the second part of the sentence. So the dancing and the biking and what I prefer versus what my husband prefers. And so we're looking at that contrast in meaning using the word but. And then thirdly, you can use but as a marker of speaker return. So when a speaker attempts to recover a lost point. but anyway, or but as I was saying. So this is a speaker attempting to recover a lost point. So coming back to their main point by using the word but. Now we're going to look at the meaning and use of the word or. So I put the information from the textbook into this chart because I thought that this would be a helpful way of looking at the different ways of thinking about the meaning of the word or. So first of all, we have the inclusive or, and the meaning here is logically oriented, so similar to what we saw with the word and. We have X or Y is true if one or both conjuncts are true. So this is inclusive. So here's an example. We will serve pasta or pizza. So in order for this sentence to be true, it could be that we're going to serve pasta, or it could be we're going to serve pizza, or it could actually mean that we're going to serve both pasta and pizza. Then we have the exclusive or. X or Y is true if one conjunct is true. So you can pay $5,000 in cash or pay that amount with a money order. So in this instance, one would not expect that somebody would do both of those things. It would only be paying $5,000 in one way. So this is the exclusive or. Or it can also be used as a warning, an imperative or warning followed by a consequence. And this is like saying otherwise, or if this, then this. Here's an example. Stop that noise, or I will call the police. Or it can also be used in paraphrases at a phrasal level in definitions, appositives, or paraphrases. Here's an example. The board must be mitered or cut at an angle. So here we have the word mitered, and then the writer felt like this might need to be explained to the reader, and so they added this definition, or cut at an angle. So here the word or is used to add that definition as a paraphrase. Or can also be used as a self-correction device. This is when a speaker is trying to clarify something. We have to help the children, or more precisely, we have to help them to help themselves. So this is clarifying. This is meaning and use of the word so. As a marker relating causes and results. The rope broke, so the box fell down. It can also be used as an inferential marker relating a proposition in the first clause to an inference in the second. So we have the car is in the garage, so he must be home. So we have here the inference that he must be home, and this is related to the proposition that the car is in the garage. When one person gives the initial proposition and the other gives the inference. So this is similar to the second example here, but it is two different people. So the first person might say, Apple just went out of business, and then the second person says, so you have lost your investment. Okay, so we have the second person making the inference based on the first person's proposition. Or if no prior utterance has occurred. So even if this first part of the sentence or this first person didn't even say this, you could still use the word so. So you ate it. Okay, so here there isn't a reference beforehand, but still using the word so because the person who is speaking has that reference in their head. So you ate it. It could also be used as a discourse marker to transition the conversation or when a conversation has played out. So something like, that was really depressing. So anyways, today has been good. Okay, so somebody is using this to move on with the conversation. So the textbook also gives these different discourse marker functions of the word so. So it has the type of relation and then the discourse marker function. So we have ideational, that can indicate a result, interpersonal, draw a conclusion, prompt, or hold the floor. And then we also have textual, introduce a summary, introduce a section of the discourse, indicate a shift back to a higher unit of the discourse, introduce elaboration, or mark self-correction. Finally, we have the meaning and use of the words and / or. So the textbook goes back to these specific words because of some confusion that can come from these words and or. So Larson, Freeman, and Saussure-Mercier illuminate that the alternation between and or in conjoined constructions in affirmative and negative statements, respectively, may be confusing to EL students. Most speakers of English will view sentence C as the proper negation to mean they don't have a house and they don't have a car. So we look at C, it says they don't have a house or a car. So this could be particularly confusing to EL students because in this case here, this is how native English speakers will most often see this is how you do the negation of the words or the sentence they have a house and a car. So if you're going to make a negative, they don't have a house or a car. So EL students or non-native English speakers may think that B logically seems to make more sense as a negation. So they don't have a house and a car. But this is something that is the way that most native English speakers will see it as. They don't have a house or a car, even though logically it might not necessarily seem like the way to make the negative statement. So now we're going to go into the second portion of the presentation, which is suggestions for teaching the grammar concept. So the first example that I have is to/either/neither speaking practice. Why use this strategy? As the authors illuminate, the use of coordination with to/either/neither takes practice for ESL/EFL students to master. This is partially because of structural difficulties. It is also because many languages show agreement with a negative statement by affirming rather than by negating. So if person A says, "I am not finished with my studies," person B might say, "So am I," or "Me too," instead of saying, "Neither am I." And so this is something that we may see a lot with our EL students, so it's definitely something to practice. So what is the strategy? Number 1, put students in partner pairs or groups of 3 for more advanced students, and we'll see why in a little bit, to have them practice commenting on like or dislike statements. So you show students various pictures one at a time. So examples would be a kind of food, an activity or a sport, a place, a kind of music, a movie or TV show, etc. You want to be sure to model this to the students. Have student A say in a complete sentence whether they like what is in the picture, like "I like pizza" or "I don't like pizza." Then have student B comment on the statement with their opinion. "I like pizza too," or they could say, "I don't like pizza either." For intermediate or advanced students, have student C, so they would be in groups of 3 for these students, have student C comment on both statements. "Neither Anna nor Chris likes pizza," or "Anna doesn't like pizza," and "Chris doesn't like pizza either," or "Anna doesn't like pizza and neither does Chris." Who is the strategy for? This strategy can be used for beginner to advanced EL students. The pictures can be adjusted to fit the age and level of the group. Beginner and/or younger students would benefit from simple objects like food. More advanced students and/or older students can be given more complex and mature ideas like doing taxes or going to a concert. Kind of depends on who your students are and what you think they're going to be interested in. Also, this strategy can be scaffolded for beginners. You can see below for more information about that, and can be simplified as suggested on the previous slide. What materials do you need? You will need pictures of the objects / things / activities you want students to discuss. This could be on cards that you show, or it could be in a slideshow. For beginner students, I would also suggest sentence, stems, and frames, and a word bank. What are potential challenges and/or scaffolding needed? I think some students might struggle to create the sentences on their own, so modeling would be of great importance, especially for beginner ELs. Also, sentence, stems, and frames, and a word bank would greatly benefit beginner and intermediate ELs. These scaffolds can eventually be taken away when students get enough practice. Some vocabulary may need to be pre-taught. The teacher can show pictures ahead of time and talk about what they are. The teacher may also need to give a lot of examples about how to use to/either/neither. Why did I pick this strategy? I picked this strategy because in my own teaching, I have noticed that students could benefit from more speaking practice in general. Also, I think students need practice with responding to each other. The activity seems engaging and good practice with the difficult concept of using to/either/neither. Furthermore, in my own teaching environment next year, which will be elementary EL, I'm anticipating a lot of students whose first language is one of the Asian languages, one of the many. So this strategy should be helpful for them. And students who also speak many other languages would benefit from this strategy as well. What grammar concept is the student learning or practicing? This strategy is learning about and practicing the use of coordination with the words to, either, neither. It is focused on form and meaning. Students are forming statements using those words and practicing the meaning of those words. This activity is focused on speaking practice. Are there any special considerations? The teacher should pay close attention to students' responses. If a student responds incorrectly, like saying "so do I" instead of "I don't like pizza either," the teacher should step in and assist. Some groups may need more modeling and sentence, stems, and frames. Second suggestion. So this is complex coordination writing practice. Why use this strategy? As Larson, Freeman, and Celsi-Murcia illuminate, students often have difficulties with complex coordination. Two-part correlative constructions where one part precedes the first conjunct and the other correlates with and precedes the second. This strategy gives students practice with using complex coordination. Their sentence constructions could include both and, either or, and neither nor. What is the strategy? First, give students a list of activities such as playing soccer, drawing a picture, singing a song, climbing a mountain, etc. Next, give students descriptions of some people. These people could be real or imaginary. For beginner and/or younger students, you should read these descriptions to them. Number 3, in pairs, students will then write sentences in which people are likely to be able to do each activity. So an example, they might say either Anna or Chris could draw a picture. Neither John nor Mary could climb a mountain. Number 4, students will then share responses with the class and discuss whether they agree with each other's answers. Who is this strategy for? This strategy is mostly for intermediate to advanced EL students and for upper elementary, middle, and high school levels. Students are constructing fairly complicated sentences and need to know a fair amount of vocabulary. However, this strategy can be scaffolded for beginners, see below, and can be simplified with easier activities and descriptions. What materials do you need? You need a worksheet with the activities listed and space for students to write their sentences next to the activities. You also need a printout with the descriptions of the people. For beginner students, I would also suggest sentence stems and frames and a word bank. Potential challenges and scaffolding. I think some students might struggle to create the sentences on their own. Some modeling will be of great importance, especially beginner ELs. Also, sentence stems and frames and a word bank will greatly benefit beginner and intermediate ELs. Some vocabulary may need to be pre-taught. The teacher can show pictures ahead of time and talk about what they are. The teacher may also need to give a lot of examples about how to use both and, either or, and neither nor. Why did I pick it? I picked this strategy because in my own teaching, I've noticed that students could benefit from more writing practice, and also I noticed specifically recently they need help with comparing and contrasting just in general. The activity seems engaging and good practice with the difficult concept of using correlative conjunctions. Furthermore, in my own teaching environment next year, I will probably be teaching some intermediate, upper elementary students who would benefit from this kind of more advanced writing practice. What grammar concept are they practicing? This strategy is learning about and practicing the use of correlative conjunctions. It's focused on form and meaning. Students are forming statements using both and, either or, neither nor, and practicing the meanings of those words. And this activity is specifically focused on writing practice. Special considerations. The teacher should pay close attention to students' written responses. If a student is using correlative conjunctions incorrectly, the teacher should step in and assist. Some groups may need more modeling and sentence stems and frames. All right, third suggestion. This is coordinating conjunctions listening practice. I wanted to make sure to do a listening practice as well because I think this is an area that isn't focused on enough, and it's a good way to get more language input. So why use this strategy? As Larson, Freeman, and Celsi-Murcia suggest, the processes of coordination will have to be taught so that beginning level ESL/EFL students can learn to produce and understand conjoined constructions. This strategy gives students practice listening to and identifying different ways of coordinating conjunctions are used. As seen in this presentation, conjunctions are used in various ways, which can be confusing to ELs. What is the strategy? Number one, record a conversation in which speakers are using various conjunctions in different ways. You may want to create the script and recording yourself so that you get the content that you want to focus on. Number two, have students listen to the recording several times with different purposes. The first listen can be for gist, the second for identifying conjunctions, and the third for discussing the functions of the different conjunctions. After each listening, have students write about what they heard. Number one, write a brief summary. So this is after the first listening. Number two, write all of the conjunctions that you hear after the second listening. And number three, write possible functions or meanings of the conjunctions. Number four, after each listening writing step, discuss answers as a class. Who is it for? I would say the strategy is mostly for intermediate to advanced EL students and for upper, elementary, middle, and high school levels. Students are listening to fairly complicated sentences and need to know a fair amount of vocabulary. However, this strategy can be scaffolded for beginners, see below, and can be simplified with easier language in the recording. Materials. You'll need a good recording of people talking about coordinating conjunctions in various ways. Also, I'd suggest giving students a worksheet with the steps listed out and space to write their responses. For beginner and intermediate students, I would also suggest sentence stems and frames and a word bank. I think some students might struggle to figure out functions and meanings of conjunctions, so modeling will again be of great importance, especially for beginners. Also, sentence stems and frames in a word bank will greatly benefit beginner and intermediate ELs. Some vocabulary may need to be pre-taught. The teacher can show pictures ahead of time and talk about what they are. So I picked this strategy because in my own teaching I've noticed that students could benefit from more listening practice in general. The activity seems engaging and good practice with the various functions of conjunctions. Furthermore, in my own teaching environment next year, I will probably be teaching some intermediate upper elementary students who would benefit from this kind of listening and writing practice. This strategy is learning about and practicing the use of coordinating conjunctions. It is focused on use. Students are listening to a conversation with coordinating conjunctions, identifying examples, and classifying them. This activity is focused on listening, but has some writing practice. Special considerations, the teacher should pay close attention to the student's written and verbal responses. If a student is identifying and classifying coordinating conjunctions incorrectly, the teacher should step in and assist. Some groups may need more modeling and sentence stems and frames. So this is the bibliography. And thanks for listening.